Hi, this is Pam from Woodcamper Crafts, and today I'm going to teach you how to make these quick and easy baby mittens that look like they were knit. All of my crochet patterns are inspired by nature. I came up with this idea while I was sitting around beautiful Brome Lake in Squamish, British Columbia, Canada. So these are called the Baby Brome Mitt. Before we get started, you'll need a few things. I'm using Capri by Loops and Threads. It's a medium weight yarn that I purchased from Michaels. If you are going to substitute, I would use something similar. This one has 57% cotton, 28% nylon, and 15% polyester. The nylon makes it nice and stretchy. I'm also using scissors to cut my ends, and then you'll need a 4mm crochet hook. You can use stitch markers or you can count, and then you'll also need a darning needle to weave in your ends. I get a lot of people commenting on my patterns asking me for modifications so that they can make the patterns bigger or smaller. So in this video, I'm including measurements. I'm going to be showing you how to make these baby mitts for 0 to 3 months. But if you're using a different weight yarn or you want to make them bigger, 3 to 6 months, here's the measurements so that you can modify the pattern yourself. We're ready to get started. For this pattern, you'll want to use a 4mm crochet hook. But for this video, I'm going to grab a bigger hook, a 5mm hook, just to make it easier for you to see. But you'll definitely want to be using that 4mm hook. So to start off, we are going to do a simple slip knot. And I'm going to insert my hook, pull tight, and we are going to chain 17. So yarn over and pull through, and that's 1, yarn over and pull through, we've chained 2, yarn over and pull through, that's 3. So we're going to just keep doing this until we have 17 in total. So once you finish your chain 17, I will meet you back here for the next step. I finished chaining 17 and we're ready to start row 1. So in this row, we're going to be working in the second chain from our hook. So there's the first chain and there's the second chain. So don't insert your hook there. We're inserting our hook into the second chain. So insert your hook and we're just doing a single crochet. So yarn over and pull through. You have 2 loops on your hook, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops to complete the single crochet. So we're going to continue all the way along this chain. We're doing 16 single crochets in total. So there's our second single crochet. And I'm going to just pause here for a minute and I'm going to grab my stitch marker. So I'm going to put my stitch marker on that first stitch that I did. So I'm just going to insert my stitch marker. Not everybody likes using stitch markers. If you're newer to crocheting, I definitely recommend that you use them. Otherwise, you can just count. So we're going to keep going here. So this is going to be our third single crochet. And you're just going to keep working along this chain. We are doing 16 single crochets in total. Just make sure that your chain doesn't twist while you're working through it. And I will meet you at the end of the row. I've just completed row 1 and I have 16 single crochets in my row. So at the end of every row, I'm going to chain 1 and I'm going to turn my work. For rows 2 to 18, we are doing single crochets working in the back loop only. So I've got my stitch markers here to show you your front and back loop. The orange stitch marker indicates the front loop and the green stitch marker indicates the back loop. So where that green stitch marker is, the back loop, is where we're going to place our hook. I'm ready to start row 2, and you'll remember we started by chaining 1. So I'm not going into that chain, I'm going into the first stitch in the row, working in the back loop only. So I'm inserting my hook in that back loop and I'm doing a single crochet. So yarn over and pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops to complete the single crochet. So working in our next stitch here under the back loop only, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over and pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment because I am using those stitch markers, and I'm going to take my stitch marker and put it on that first stitch that I did. So I've got my stitch marker on there. I'm going to continue along, and just remember we are doing 16 single crochets in total, working in that back loop only. So here's our third one, and I'm going to let you work on this on your own, and I will meet you at the end of the row just before that final stitch marker. I'm almost at the end of the row. I've got one stitch left, so I'm going to take off that stitch marker, and I'm doing a single crochet working in that back loop only. So I finished the last stitch in my row. I'm going to chain one, and I'm going to turn. And we're starting row 3 here. So once again, that was my chain. So I'm not working in there. I'm working in the first stitch right here under the back loop only. And we're doing single crochets in that back loop. So there's one, inserting my hook under the back loop only in that next stitch, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through both loops. That's 2. And I'm just going to pause here a minute, grab that stitch marker and put it back on that first stitch in the row. So you can see I have 2 stitches, so I'm putting it on the first stitch in the row. And I'm going to continue on here. For rows 2 to 18, we are doing single crochets working in the back loop only, and we're doing 16 stitches per row. At the end of every row, you're going to chain 1 and turn. Now that we've done the first few rows together, I'm going to let you work on this on your own. You can pause this video and I will meet you back here when you've finished row 18, and I'll show you how to join the band together. I've finished the band and I have 18 rows in total. If you did that chain 1 at the end, just pull that out before you join the band together. I have my band all lined up and I'm ready to slip stitch it together. I've got my final row lined up with my original chain. So I'm using my stitch markers just to hold my work together and keep everything all lined up. You don't need to do this, but if you have the stitch markers, it sometimes makes it a little bit easier. So I've got the stitch markers there. I'm going to put my hook back in here. And we're ready to slip stitch it together. So I'm going under both loops this time. And then just that single loop in my original chain. And we are doing slip stitches, which is just yarning over. And we're going to pull through all the loops on our hook. And this one's a little bit hard, the first one, so I'm just going to give it a helping hand, and we've completed our first slip stitch. So once again, working under both loops in that final row, and then just a single loop in the original chain, yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook to complete your slip stitch. So you can do this on your own. Just remember we're doing 16 slip stitches in total, and I will meet you back here when you are all done. We have our band all joined together, and now we are going to turn it right side out. So I'm just going to take this, and actually not that way, we have to do it the other way, so our yarn is on the outside. And we're just going to turn this so it is right side out. There we go. And you'll remember when we were doing the band, we have 18 rows in total. So we're actually going to be putting stitches at the top of each of the 18 rows. So to identify that, you can see there's a kind of a ridge. So that's the top of a row, and there's a valley, that's the top of a row, and another ridge, that's the top of a row, and then your valley, that's the top of another row. So that's how you identify where you're placing your stitches for row 1. We're ready to start row 1. So we're going to start by doing a chain 1. And then our first single crochet is going at the top of that valley. So we're going to insert our hook. We're doing a single crochet, yarn over and pull through. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. So now we're going to start our sequence, which we're going to do 4 times. So we're doing a single crochet right at the top of that ridge there. And we're going to do single crochets 3 times. So there's 1. And now we're working at the top of that valley. We're going to do a single crochet. So that's our second one. And now at the top of that ridge there, we're doing a single crochet. So that's our third one. So at the top of the valley now, we're going to put 2 single crochets in the same hole. So there's our valley. We're going to stick our hook in there and we're doing 2 single crochets. So there's our first one. And then we're going into that same hole there. We are going to do another single crochet. So there's our sequence that we've done once. We're going to do it 4 times in total. So we're doing a single crochet at the top of the ridge. So there's 1. And then a single crochet at the top of the valley. There's 2. And a single crochet at the top of the ridge. So we've got 3. So in the next hole, we're doing 2 single crochets in the same hole. So at the top of that valley, we're going to do a single crochet. And then we're going to work another single crochet into that same hole. So now we've completed the sequence twice. So you need to do this 4 times in total. So I'm going to let you work on this. You're on your own. You're going to do it 2 more times. And then once you finish this sequence 4 times in total, the very last stitch in the row is going to be a single crochet so that you have 22 stitches in total. So you can pause this video, work on this on your own, and I will meet you at the end of row 1. So we've just completed row 1 and we have 22 stitches in total. So we're starting row 2. If you're using your stitch markers, you'll know that that was your chain 1 and that's your first stitch in the row. So we're inserting our hook into the first stitch in the row and we're just doing single crochets. So we're going to be doing 22 single crochets in total. So there's 1 and there's our second one. So we have 2 single crochets. And if you were using your stitch marker, you could just pause here and put it on that first stitch in the row. And then we're going to keep going. So this is 3. You can keep working on this on your own. You are doing 22 single crochets, and I will meet you at the end of row 2. So for rows 3 to 9, we are doing 22 stitches in each row. In the last row, we were doing single crochets. So the placement of our hook for a single crochet is just like this. When you're doing the waistcoat stitch, I'm just going to grab my darning needle here and show you. If you look right under there, you can see that's where we put our hook for a single crochet. But under here, you can see kind of that V shape that your yarn forms. You're going to be putting your needle in between that V, kind of on a diagonal there. So you can see there's the V shape. So you're inserting your hook in between the 2 on a diagonal. So once again, let's look. There's that V shape you can see, and you're inserting your hook in between the V shape. So that's where you put the single crochet right there. We're not working there. We're working in between that V and sticking your hook on a diagonal there. And I love this stitch because it gives you that knit look. So let's get started here. So you can see there's the V and I'm inserting my hook on a diagonal in between the V. And you might have to give it a helping hand to get it through here. So I've got it in between the V, I'm yarning over just like I would a single crochet, pulling through. I've got 2 loops on my hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. So I've completed my first waistcoat stitch. So you can see I'm inserting my hook in between that V on an angle there, and I'm yarning over and pulling through. The trick to this stitch is really doing this loose. So you can see I really pulled up my yarn there to make sure I'm doing it really loose. So once again, in between that V, just like a single crochet now, yarn over and pull through. 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through both loops. So just keep going here. Once again, remember making sure it's really loose or it's going to be really hard to get in between that V. If you're having trouble, you can pull that loop out of the way and then push your hook through. That's my little trick if your stitches are too tight and you're really having a hard time getting in between that V. So we're going to keep going here. I'm just going to do that trick again where I pull it out of the way and then insert my hook through the V. Yarn over and pull through. We have 2 loops, yarn over and pull through both loops. So I'm going to continue all the way along here. I am doing the waistcoat stitch. I am doing 22 stitches in each row. And I'm going to do this for rows 3 to 9. You can work on this on your own. You can pause this video and I will meet you back here at the end of row 9. We're now ready to start row 10, which is going to be our first row of decrease. So in this row, we're going to do the waistcoat stitch in the first 9 stitches. So here's our first one. And then we're going to go in our next one. So that's 2. Three. And then 4. And as you can see, I'm using that technique I taught you to get in between that V when you're finding it hard to get your hook in there. So that's 5. 6. 7. 8. And then our last one here is 9. So our last one before we start our decrease. So we're going to do the waistcoat stitch 2 together. So I'm going to insert my hook and I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to pull through. I've got 2 loops on my hook. And then we're going to go into the next stitch in between that V. And we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and pull through. So we have 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to complete the waistcoat stitch 2 together. So now we're going to keep going in this row. We're doing this sequence twice. So we're doing 9 waistcoat stitches followed by a 2 together, and then we'll be finished this row. So that's 2 and 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9. Oops. And we're going to finish off this row by doing a 2 together. So insert your hook, yarn over and pull through. You have 2 loops on your hook, and then insert your hook into the next stitch in that V, yarn over and pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We've completed row 10. Because we did the decrease stitch twice, we now have 20 stitches in our row. So we're ready to start row 11. We're going to do the same thing we just did, but this time we're doing 8 waistcoat stitches followed by 2 together. So there's our first one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and our final one before we do our 2 together, so this is 8. So now we're going to do our 2 together stitch, our decrease stitch, and I'm going to insert my hook into that next V, yarn over and pull through. I have 2 loops on my hook. Then we're going into the next stitch in the next V, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through. We have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So remember, we're doing that sequence twice, and you can see our next stitch is where we had the 2 together in the row below. So when you're working in that stitch, you can see I'm still placing my hook on that angle into that 2 together stitch. So you can see where I'm coming through the back side here. So just yarn over, I'm doing a single waistcoat stitch. So there's our first one, and remember we're doing 8. So working in that next V, so that's 2, 3, and now 4, 5, 6, and 7, and our last one here before our decrease is 8, and our decrease is our last stitch in the row. So we're going to insert our hook between the V, yarn over and pull through so that we have 2 loops on the hook, insert our hook into that next V, yarn over and pull through so we have 3 loops on the hook, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we've now completed the row. So we're starting row 12, working in that 2 together from the row before. So just insert your hook on the angle there and yarn over and pull through. So that's your first stitch, and we're doing 7 followed by the 2 together. So that's 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, and our last one before our 2 together is 7. And now we're doing our 2 together. So insert your hook into that V, yarn over and pull through. You have 2 loops. Insert your hook into the next V, yarn over and pull through. You have 3 loops. Yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So I'll let you finish the row on your own. You're doing this sequence again. So you're doing 7 waistcoat stitches followed by a 2 together. When you get to the end of this row, you will have 16 stitches in total. We're ready to start row 13, so we're doing 6 waistcoat stitches followed by the 2 together. So insert your hook into that 2 together from the row before, and you're putting your hook on an angle there, so that's 1. And then going into the next one, in between that V, that's 2. And then working in the next V, that's 3. And the next one is 4. And 5. And 6, our last one before our 2 together. So now we're doing our 2 together, insert your hook into the V, yarn over and pull through. We have 2 loops, and then you're going into the next stitch in the V, and then yarn over and pull through. We have 3 loops on our hook, and yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So I've done the sequence once, you're going to do it one more time. You're doing 6 waistcoat stitches followed by the 2 together to complete row 13, and once you're done, you will have 14 stitches in the row. Now that we've worked on a few rows together and you know how to do the decrease stitch, you can work on rows 14 to 17 on your own. Just remember, in every row you're doing 1 less waistcoat stitch per row, and we're always doing the sequence twice. Once you complete row 17, you'll have 6 stitches in your row, and I will meet you back here and I'll show you how to finish off your mitt. So you can pause this video, work on this on your own, and I'll meet you back here. We finished the final row, row 17, and we're ready to close off the mitt. So I've already cut my end and I've threaded my darning needle. So I'm going to insert the darning needle through that loop, and then I'm going to pull tight to knot. And then we're going to work the yarn through that final row. So I'm going to take my darning needle and I'm going under that first stitch there. And then we're going to keep doing that in the opposite direction. So now I'm working the needle outwards under the next stitch there. And then we're going to work in the next stitch. We are working the needle inwards. So I'm going to do this all the way along the last row until I've worked under all of my stitches. So I've worked the yarn through all the stitches. Now I'm just going to pull tight to close it off. And then I am going to take my darning needle and insert it from one side to the other. And we're just going to knot this. So I'm going to take my darning needle in through the loop and pull tight to knot. Then I'm going to insert my darning needle so that I can pull my thread through to the inside so that I can weave in my ends. So now that I've got the yarn on the inside, I'm going to take my mitt and I'm just going to turn it inside out. And you can see I've got just 2 ends that I need to weave in, and then we'll be all done our mitt. We're now ready to weave in the ends. When I'm weaving my ends, I take the darning needle and I put it under 4 or 5 stitches in one direction and I pull through. And then I go in the opposite direction, either above or below the row that I just worked in. And I'm going to work under a few stitches here and just pull the yarn in the opposite direction. And then we're all done. I'm going to grab my scissors and cut my end. So you just have 2 ends to weave in. I'll let you do the final one on your own and then you're all done. You can just turn this right side out and we have completed our mitt. And this is what the mitts look like when they're all done. I want to thank everyone for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this one, please subscribe to my channel.